Croeso and welcome to Tales for Wales, the pod that never fails to engage those little synapses in your brain, make you laugh, make you think about history and shit. That's as good as I can get, really, on such short notice.
For the listener, Jack, we just started. I said, Jack, can you do it? So Jack's doing the whole episode today. He's doing the history, he's doing the intro. I'm being an absolute backseat bitch.
Yeah, and we started and he went, I tell you what, why don't we just start recording off the bat? We'll capture any banter then. Also do the intro. And it was like 5, 4, 3. So thanks for that, mate. That's the best you all get for that.
We're on a lunchtime one, so I'm up against it because I got loads to do in work today. And I'm so I've done it again. I've had too much salt the night before.
Oh no, you got the old salt hangover.
I got the salt hangover. I went to Pasture in Cardiff, which is phenomenal. It is just
beautiful.
The best. So good. But every single slice of steak that I had, I'd get the rock salt and I'd pour an ungodly amount per slice. So every single millimetre of steak was covered in a bit of a dirty old rock salt.
I can totally imagine with you telling the waiter, just be like, can you just get me what is essentially a small bath full of salt? And what I'll do is I'll just dip my steak slices and just fucking rub them against it.
She brought me a little fucking bottle cap's worth of salt to begin with. I was like, love, that is not going to be enough. So
do you know who you're talking to?
Yeah. So she brought this little fucking dust of salt over, and I was like, no, come on, let's be serious. So then I had to ask another waiter. I was like, hey, mate, I've been fucked over here. Go get me some real. Go to the back, get me the real salt. And then I had it. But then I woke up today and I was like, fuck. I woke up like crisping. I was just so dry.
Oh, I can just imagine the electrolytes you're lacking in your body at the moment, just been used up by all the salt.
And I'm crazy jet lagged because I just come back from. G'day, mate. I'm from Australia, and I've just come back from Brisbane. So I'm.
Yeah. For the listeners, the adjective I've heard a lot from Franco's text recently are tired, very tired.
I'm getting up at 4 every morning. And then I crash about 5 in the afternoon, but but then I have to stay awake until the evening, and I'm fucking knackered. I went to go see James Acaster on Monday, and the whole show is about him used to being really offended by people not paying attention to his show, and that's kind of the premise of the show. And I fell asleep in the second half because I was absolutely exhausted.
Oh, wow!
Just yeah.
It's not even that it's a boring show; it's a good show.
It's a good show. Mate, I really loved it. I was doing that thing where you're drifting off, and you can kind of know you're drifting. I was going a bit delirious. I was picturing things that weren't happening. I was just fucking, and I had 2 or 3 beers, which didn't help as well.
Yeah,
just enough to get me.
You imagine when James Acaster whipped his fucking cock out, that was mad, wasn't it? Just in the recesses of your subconscious.
And he went on that racist tirade. That was a bit mad, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not like his usual style, very different from the first half. Oh, well.
I really liked it though, but I was a bit I've done too much. I came back on Friday, and then I had an all day on Saturday, which didn't finish till about 4 in the morning, and then I was dead on Sunday. Monday night, James Acaster. Last night was the steak place, and I'm just fucking. And tomorrow I'm in London for work, so I just I'm all over the shop. Yeah, and then I'm in Reading on Saturday for an all dayer again. When will it stop?
Jealous of the all-dayers, but yeah, you're not match fit for these things, yeah.
That sounded like you weren't happy at all as well. Oh, God. I'm fucking jealous of the all-dayers, you little rat.
Yeah, all right. You don't have to rub it in, living the high life. Yeah.
Can I give you a quick little anecdote about Brisbane? Actually, it's not about Brisbane. It's when we were flying back. So I went to fucking Australia for 6 days, which is ridiculous. I would never advise going to Australia for 6 days. You just about get over the jet lag there, then you come back here. But it's a fun place. It's really nice people, unbelievably nice people over there. It makes you think, fucking hell, the UK is miserable. And I think I forgot how
grumpy twat.
Yeah, but no longer fun grumpy. We used to be like, oh, that's the wry British humour. It's now like, no, fucking just cheer up, you miserable sods. Anyway, one guy who didn't have this bitter attitude was this Scottish guy at Dubai Airport. And Dubai Airport, am I saying Dubai funny? Dubai Airport.
Dubai?
Yeah, Dubai.
Yeah, I think that's all right, yeah.
I think I've said Dubai too much.
I got you.
Yeah, goodbye,
yeah.
Dubai.
It's not even a word in your head anymore. It's just lost all meaning.
Yeah, so we went to Dubai Airport. It doesn't sound right. And they're really strict there. They have got no they've got as much tolerance of humour as they do like homosexuals. They've got no time for it at all. And,
which, if you're not clued up on the political dynamics, is not very much.
No. But when I was so I was going through the airport, and like you get through the security like normal, all your bag security, and every time I went through security, my bag got stopped, and I was shitting myself every single time because I just thought, I always have a guilty conscience anyway. But my bag got stopped the entire time.
Act the guilty part.
Yeah. And then when you go through like the check, you've gone through checkout, and then you're at the like you can just go around the shops and stuff, and then to get to your gate, you got to go through security again. And they swab everything. So they take all like your shoes, any luggage you got with you, your hands. They swab everything. And there's this great big fat jolly Scotsman next to me. And when they were swabbing him, they put this thing in a machine. And what does it say, lad? What does it say? Guilty of eating pan of chocolate? Is it guilty of pan of chocolate? Is that what it says? Does it? And they go, hey Ken. And the guy who's swabbing it didn't say a word back to him. And he went, hey, so am I free to go for more pan of chocolate? The guy didn't say a word. And then as he walked past,
just not even like a nose, a planned sort of response, just nothing. I've got no interest.
And then the Scotsman went, "Hey Sheila, I told him the pan of chocolates. I told him about the pan of chocolates." And his wife just looked at the floor and just gave him the exact same response. Like, oh no!
Not just the staff that can't be asked. His own fucking spouse is like, no.
She was exhausted. Graham, I've fucking heard about your pan of chocolates 5 times. It's not funny, you fat bastard.
Does anyone care about my pan of chocolate?
But what a weird thing to say to a dude whose first language probably isn't English. It's like such a so he's using a bit. I was howling when it was happening. It made me forget my anxiety about getting fucking frisked.
I forgot you through security and undeterred this time.
Yeah. But it was it was such a fucking long flight, man. 33 hours of travelling in the sky, and then like trains from Manchester back to Cardiff, and just everything takes. The trains are just so bad.
I don't know why that's tickled me the way you described having a flight, travelling in the sky.
Did my sky travel, then my land travel, a little bit of water travel. But we're going to be reunited soon, aren't we? We got a stag do in 2 weeks.
Stag do,
which is so funny. The bride to be stag do, a hen do, was like 6 days in Catalonia in like this in this fucking
very
villa,
glamorous.
Really glamorous. And the stag's on it is a day in Birmingham.
1 day in Brum.
All right, mate. Would you like to come here
It's
for your
like,
stag do? Oh, I don't
It's
blame
like
you
we're
for that.
punishing ourselves. We don't deserve any better than this.
Would you like a nice day out now, mate? I'd rather go to Birmingham. It's not for me, Dad.
We did offer the stag a 2-dayer, but
you went
but Dan,
1 day enough. Is 1 day?
Yeah, probably enough for Birmingham. Yeah. But also
Birmingham.
2-dayer always batters us all these days anyway, doesn't it? We're always wrecks on the second day, so why not save the liver the damage?
Yeah. Just the tight. I'm so fucking battered. I don't know if it just maybe I got like COVID or something, but I'm just feeling like a bit fucking worn out. And the idea of doing 2 days in Birmingham just would fucking Tommy Shelby me to death. I think
having to drink what I can only assume is bitter, because I'm assuming that's what they sell there.
All right, mate, give you quite a lot. We don't do calling round here. We had been doing.
What are you soft? Are you soft drinking lager?
All right, you'll have a glass of stout and you'll be happy with it. All right. No.
And what we do here in Birmingham is we put a cracked egg in it as well.
We call that dinner. We have we crack a bit of egg in your pint, and you'll take that home for dinner. And your wife will say, "Thomas, where have you been?" And you'll say, "Get in the ass."
I can imagine their tequila shots. You got to like lick a bit of Bisto, like granules off fucking arm or something. I don't know why I'm slamming the Brums. Sorry, any listeners, but you know,
I think we got some Brummy listeners as well. So welcome aboard, mate.
Not anymore.
Do you want to get us? Do you haven't spoken to you in ages? You got any updates?
No, not really, mate. I've been in pretty much constant text contact with you, haven't I? So the only thing I've done recently is go to the old Roman fort in Caerleon.
Yeah, mad. Your
fairly
partner
interesting.
suggested it.
Yeah, no, she puts a lot of effort into I like date nights and stuff. I just end up going, oh, cinema, want to watch a film, which is kind of for me anyway.
Yeah.
But
have you seen Barbie yet?
No, not yet. It's on my to watch list. I wasn't going to bother watching it because it didn't look like my cup of tea. But then two of you and Sean of our friends group, have been singing its praises.
I found it fucking hilarious. I thought it was really fun.
I'm gonna have to give it a look.
Yeah, I'd get involved. It's a fun one to have after a few bevs. And also we saw it in the cinema, and everyone was like, it was packed, and everyone was like dressed up, which would normally annoy me. I don't really like participation, but everyone was like, it was just good spirits, and everyone was like really quite drunk and smashed watching it, and like hooting and hollering.
I really want to see Oppenheimer as well, but that sounds like it would be the opposite tone in the cinema for that. It's going to be like the atomic bomb, the destroyer of worlds, as opposed to, I don't know, Nicki Minaj's cover of Barbie Girl. So.
Well, do you want to get us going with or are we going to update us on Carry On?
I've got no, I got nothing really to say. Not to slam it. It was pretty good. It's quite cool to be, me and you, we like being amongst like the old ruins of something ancient, don't we? And it's quite cool you can touch something that's like thousands of years old.
I love that.
But it's, I don't know, I'm a big Celt fanboy, aren't I? So I was really looking forward to getting some Celtic like information about what was going on at the time, why it was built, because I think it was built after the sort of Silurian War had died down a bit, because they wouldn't have been able to build it in the depths of that battle, or the war rather. But just a little bit of something about give the Silurians their due. There was nothing really about them in there.
Really, it was just more about the Romans, was it?
It was more about just like the building of it afterwards, and like what the Romans did there. It was very much geared more to kids, I think. And like, what did they do here? Oh, this is what they did. They used to wash in this bath, and then they fucking used this to scrape. I know. I was like, I want battle, I want blood. But and there was like that was in the baths bit, and there's two other sites that are nearby, not far to walk to. There's the barracks, which I thought, brilliant. They'll have loads of stuff about like the soldiers and stuff there, and how they fought the Celts. There was one sort of sign that had a bit of information on it, and that was it. And it was about the shitter. It was like, the Romans had good shitters for the day. And I was like, cool, that's ace. And then the amphitheatre, again, that was really cool to go see, but no info there, So it's only a $5, so it's worth a day out. And there's loads of pubs around, so if you want to go for a jar after.
So where's that for people who might not know?
Caerleon, so just up from Newport. Pretty easy to get to if you're like Cardiff area or whatever. It's just up the motorway. But yeah, I'd give it a go. It's not a glowing endorsement, I know, but if all else fails, go to the pub right next to it after.
What is a glowing endorsement? We haven't done our review for the episode.
Yes, I've got one highlighted here. This is one of our latest ones. Nice, short and sweet, but it is lovely. It's from a Beer Review.
He's on brand.
Say beer more. I like it. Yeah, Beer Review. And he says, or she says, funny, informative, entertaining. 5 stars. Nice mix of history, laughs, and anecdotes from 2 characters. Nice spin on an otherwise uncelebrated subject. I enjoyed that she called us characters as well.
Yeah, your character.
This made me swoon.
Your little character.
Bloody
it's very kind. Cheers.
Beer Review. Beer. We get all the best names, actually.
We do. We've got such good names coming through.
Beer Review and Buff Daddy.
I'll never get tired of Buff Daddy.
On Pringle, was it like Pringle?
Pringle ass or something.
I think it was just Pringle Tube, actually. Pringle ass, yeah.
Pringle garp.
Big old Pringle ass.
Yeah. Well, diolch yn fawr, beer. This episode's a little bit different, isn't it? I mean, we always say that, I think, at the moment.
Up. Yeah, we're innovating as we go.
Oh, is this the first episode of Series 4 as well?
Ooh, it might be. Yeah. We're sort of a couple of weeks behind, aren't we? Because for once, we've actually been quite productive, and we're a few weeks ahead of our actual release schedule.
Instead of scrambling around like a day before we need to get it out.
Instead of just chucking some really easy shit in there, like, we're going to do a quiz, and we're going to do this, because we haven't got anything to fill the airways with.
Yeah, we remembered that we got to do this a night before. No, that's not true. Just we've been mad busy. Like, I've been everywhere at the moment, so, this is for fucking free anyway, so back off,
if you want sort of routine episodes coming out in time without stressing us out, make the pod as popular as possible so we don't have to work anymore, and then that just makes the whole thing easier for us. You guys fund our dream. That'd be lovely.
If you fund us. Yeah, but we know that funding will go directly to Captain Morgan's and Carlin. We'd last about a day.
Yeah, we'd be alcoholics within a month, but then you can, what a month it'd be, and you can just watch our descent.
What a month. All right, so do you want to explain what this one's going to be about?
Yeah, so as Franco said, today we're going to do something a little bit different. This is still Welsh history. It still very much counts within that, but it's probably, we're covering the most recent events we've ever covered, I think, in this one. We normally, around medieval times, gone back as far as the Celts, and I think up until this point, maybe the Merthyr Rising's probably the most recent thing we've covered.
Yeah.
But, true crime is a big market these days, so we've decided to tap into that for one episode. And I'm going to be chatting about the Saturday Night Strangler, Wales's first ever serial killer.
They always have to undermine the tragedy by giving them stupid names like that.
I know, giving these stupid names, and I know it's fine when it's in a movie, but when it's actual real life.
The Friday Night Felcher. It's all just just give. Why don't you just call them murderers or something? That's the one thing I do struggle with true crime. I always feel it trivializes and makes it out. I mean, this is going to be hypocritical, but I think you're kind of bringing maybe not monetizing, but you're definitely. When big serial podcasts or murder things, there is still a person at the end of it. There's a family at the end of it, and I think this is different. What we're doing is going to be slightly different, but making a murderer, where they make it who did it, who's this, and they kind of they'll throw you red herrings and stuff, and they're making enjoyment or entertainment at least out of someone who's been murdered. Anyway,
definitely, it's monetizing sort of something very serious and horrible that happened, isn't it? And you know that when this was going on at the time. And they went, there's some guy in an editor's room somewhere going, what do we, we can't just say murderer. What can we go? Ooh, Saturday Night Strangler. That's that's got a bit of, thing to it.
Intrigue.
And that's just to sell papers, isn't it? And get people watching the news.
But what's going to be slightly different is, I think, because in this one here, we know, it's not like we're going to leave you on the edge of the episode and then go, join us next week to, find out who the murderer is. Because I find that stuff really, grim. It's they're... it reminds me of when I was in America. I was listening to a proper hillbilly FM, church vibe radio stuff, and it was a pastor speaking on the radio, going
an evangelical type.
Yeah, and it was saying we'll have these three things, and if you follow these things, redemption is saved. You shall be reborn again into Christ. With all you need is these three things. And it said the first one. It said one I can't remember what it was, forgive thy neighbor, two is conduct this, blah, blah, blah. And it said, for the third one, we'll tell you next week. It's if you believe in doomsday or God could come at any moment and you're withholding this one piece of information so they can come listen to your show next week, it just felt you absolute cock.
Jesus Christ famously would give his sermons in the form of a subscription service as well, on the next episode, you've got to pay me a fucking couple of shekels. You want to find out how to get into heaven? What's it worth to you, mate?
Yeah. But do you know what I mean about those serial stuff where they're they'll do a Making a Murderer where they are literally making, they'll even throw someone under the bus who's got nothing to do with it because it makes their episode feel a bit more, it gives a red head.
Have you seen the latest series of Black Mirror?
No.
There's a good episode on that sort of is commenting on that kind of thing, and it's ironic that it's on Netflix as well. But it is. I thought it was quite good. It's the best episode of the newest series. But give that a look if you want. That's if you want to go. Yeah.
If you do like Making a Murderer, there's a really fun one about a guy who keeps drawing dicks all over his school in America.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's class.
What's it
called? American
Vandal.
Something, is it? Yeah, American Vandal.
It's so funny. It's really, really funny. It's so they're these two little dweebs who go around filming, who make it's a mockumentary based on Making a Murderer, but around people, this guy or girl who's been drawing dicks all over the place, and it completely parodies the Making a Murderer.
But they use the almost exact same tropes and editing techniques and stuff like that, don't they? And it just works so well, and it's hilarious because it's about something so fucking trivial.
Yeah. Right, sorry for interjecting.
Anyway, no worries, a little detraction there. But Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Saturday Night Strangler, as we've mentioned. And for this, you're going to have to cast your minds back to 1973. Like I said, fairly recent compared to the other stuff we've covered. So cast your mind back to then, when disco was big, was it? Was that when disco was big?
Maybe.
Lots of mustaches and mad hairstyles, flares, you get the idea. And on Saturday, the 14th of July, 16-year-old girl, Sandra Newton, went missing after a night out in Britton Ferry, which is a town near Port Talbot, for those who don't know. Police searched for Sandra and ended up finding her body 3 days later, eventually finding evidence that she'd been raped and strangled to death with her own skirt. So yeah, this is going to be a little bit heavy at points, just to forewarn you, because there's going to be a few things, we like to jovialise everything and get a bit, we go on our riffs. Some points are just going to be too horrible for us to do that. So
yeah, maybe we'll put a warning at the start of this episode or something.
Yeah, it doesn't get too grim and ghastly, but there's just some things that we're not going to be able to make a stupid joke about afterwards. Yeah. So yeah, bear with us. So the body was found at a ditch near a coal mine, a place the police reckoned only someone local would know about. The police were investigating Sandra's murder when 2 months later, Geraldine Hughes and Pauline Floyd, both 16 as well, were also found dead in Llandarcy Woods, which is about 7 miles away from where Sandra was found. Again, they'd both been raped and strangled. So these two murders weren't linked to the Sandra Newton's murder 2 months prior. And now it seems mad that they wouldn't be, because, there's a lot of things they have in common. It seems, anyone who watches kind of murdery things or detective-y stuff would be thinking, why aren't they being linked? Because they're obviously the same method of murder and rape and whatnot. But I was reading up why they weren't linked, and basically because of how things were done back then, it's all on paper. There's no sort of cross-referencing system or no sort of efficient one anyway. So there'd just be shitloads of notes on different people's desks, pieces of paper being passed here, there and everywhere between different offices and things like that. Some bits go missing, they get lost, or they're just not followed up on. It's not like in a computer system these days where you would be interlinked with different precincts and things like that from different counties, and you'd all be sharing information. So basically just very messy. And contact between different precincts was pretty much it was very laborious and difficult. So for some reason, these didn't get linked together as potentially being the same killer. There was also the fact that there was already someone in the frame for Sandra Newton's murder, and that was her boyfriend at the time. So this apparently gave the police a bit of tunnel vision. So they were sort of trying to get the evidence they were finding to bend to their conclusion rather than the other way around. So because they'd sort of got this boyfriend in the picture for her murder, and they didn't reckon he could do the other two murders, they were thinking that they were near solving the first one as it was. And it was just it was a kind of a botch job in a way. But anyway, this led to both incidents being treated and investigated separately, so spreading the manpower of the cases even thinner. Police soon established that Geraldine and Pauline had been seen getting a lift from someone driving a white Austin 1100 on the night they disappeared. The eyewitness also gave the police a vague description of the driver. With the Port Talbot Steelworks employing 13,000 men at the time, as well as the construction of the M4 motorway bringing workers in from all over, this gave the police an enormous pool of people to investigate. A team of 150 officers questioned 35,000 people who loosely fitted the description of the man seen picking them up. But the description was very typical of a man at that time. Just bushy hair, moustache, in his mid-30s, so it's not exactly specific. Detectives also tried to trace anyone who owned an Austin 1100 in the area, a white Austin 1100 in the area, which led to the questioning of more than 10,000 drivers. So already this is an enormous investigation, and as I mentioned earlier, with all those bits of paper as your reports, how do you keep track of everything?
And it's the 70s, so everyone's going to be boozing 70s. On the job.
Yeah, exactly. Go lunching at the pub, coming back half cut, etc. Also, something I didn't even know about, but apparently at this time, the government was enforcing a 3-day work week because of an energy shortage. Yeah. Have you ever heard about that? I'd never heard about that.
Yeah. So it's it was to do with, so they call it the 3-day week. What you just said then. People. So it was to do with striking. It was to do with miners, and it was to do with energy.
Coal shortages and some things like that, wasn't it? Yeah, I read a little bit into it, but
Yeah.
But yeah, so
How
that
good
led
would that
to
be, though?
reduce. I know, I'd love it. A government mandated 3-day work week. Do you get paid though for your extra the 2 days?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think the
That
idea
sucks,
was you didn't use energy going to work and stuff, so you had to things were closed.
Oh, I don't know. But yeah, give me a 3-day work week. I'm up for that. Anyway, so they this 3-day work week at the time that led to reduced man hours being put into the investigations as well. So as part of this massive effort to find the killer, one of the men investigated was Joseph Capon, who himself owned a white Austin 1100. When the police turned up at his house, the car was up on blocks without its wheels, with Capon claiming he couldn't have picked the girls up that night because his car was out of commission. His wife backed up his claims that they were both at the Neath Fair that night, and Capon was struck off the list of suspects. The investigation went on, and with little progress, the police actually got so desperate that they hired a Dutch psychic, Gerard Croce, to assist. Now that sounds like something made up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so stupid. So Croce had gathered some international popularity after working on some high-profile cases around the world. He worked in Australia and also at home in the Netherlands as well. But what I thought was mad, because I looked up, I didn't look loads into this, so I didn't go sort of very far down the rabbit hole, but I couldn't find an instance that his sort of contribution to a case where he'd been brought in by the police had ever led to any successes, any extra evidence or some positive information about a case. And I just thought, how do you get to the point that police are asking you for your help when you've never produced any results, just failing upwards? Who greenlit the idea from the police? Imagine they said, should we get the psychic in? That's mad. Oh no, but he's got 100% case resolution record or something like that. And they went, oh, does he have one? No, he's literally never helped a police force in his life.
How do you find that? Because it's not like you're going to Google it. It's not.
He'd done a few high-profile things that ended up on the news across all over the world.
Charlatan.
So
charlatan.
Yeah, just an absolute grifter, basically. And yeah, funnily enough, this psychic was full of shit, and that led to nothing as well. Yeah, I can't believe it. But yeah, just mad to me that you'd even be brought in. But anyway, after no new leads turning up, the investigation was put on the back burner, and it was scaled down in the mid 1974. So it remained a cold case then until the early 2000s, when DNA testing was first starting to be used. A push to reinvestigate the murders was made and called Operation Magnum, which is very American sounding, I thought.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking of the ice cream, but I suppose it's probably more American thinking the gun.
I'm thinking the gun, yeah. That's what came to mind.
Yeah. I was thinking a delicious choco treat.
Delicious magnums. I like to think the commissioner in charge of putting these operations is a big fat fuck. Just what we call it, Operation Magnum. Actually, go get me a Magnum now.
Operation Maxi Bonds. They're quite hard to get in this country, actually.
Operation Fab. Fucking love Fab. So anyway, there was speculation at the time, actually, that Fred West was involved somehow, but this was very quickly ruled out when looking at the DNA evidence. But it was more, as we mentioned, it's sensationalist shit to sell papers and whatnot. So 35,000 people were originally targeted for DNA testing, but they managed to reduce that number to 500 with the help of a psychological profiler. This also brought the funding down considerably, as DNA testing was the new toy at the time, and it used to cost a bomb back then. So obviously the little bean counters in the police were keen on that as well. The idea that the 3 victims were now linked was looked at again, and a lot of people they'd already investigated in the 70s were asked to produce DNA samples, including Sandra's boyfriend from then, and relatives and friends of all 3 victims. So they tested the DNA on the 3 girls' bodies, not to to be, what's the word, indelicate, the jizz that was on the girls. They found that Sandra's boyfriend DNA was on her body, but there was also DNA.
How does jizz stay active for 30
It can be
years?
if it's on clothes as well. I don't know, or they might have taken. I don't know if would they have taken samples at the time and then frozen.
Maybe.
I have no idea how it would work. But anyway, they tested the semen found on all the girls' bodies, and they found that some semen on Sandra's body matched her boyfriend at the time's DNA, but he'd already claimed way back when this was happening that they'd had sex that night before they parted ways.
Yeah.
Of course, there was no way to determine if he was lying or telling the truth back then. But with the DNA technology they had at this point, they determined that there was 2 DNA samples on Sandra's body. It was the boyfriend's and an unknown individual's, and the unknown individual's DNA matched the same DNA samples that were found on the other 2 girls' bodies. For the first time since the original incident, the boyfriend was cleared, like was proved innocent, and not that he was ever charged to begin with, but I imagine in a small town like that, there was...
Yeah, you get always card with a bit of a brush.
Yeah, tried in the court of public opinion type thing, you know. I can imagine lots of people knowing him or referring to him as like the guy who killed that Sandra. But anyway, he was sort of proved innocent by this new discovery. So among these people being looked into, again, was Cappan. But once they arrived at his house to grab a DNA sample, they discovered he died of lung cancer in 1990, survived by his wife, who still lived in the house. The DNA they found on all 3 victims didn't match anyone in the newly created DNA database, but that wasn't uncommon at the time because it was brand new and it wasn't full. But some clever Trevor in the police force decided to instead search the database for anyone that had a partial match to the killer's DNA. So it would indicate any children or relatives of the killer if they had like a certain percentage match. They could use this then to work backwards through the family tree and close in on their mystery murderer. Well, what at the time was their mystery murderer. Using this method, they found a match to a guy named Paul Cappan, son of Joseph Cappan, who was already on the database for car theft, but he'd only have been 7 years old at the time of the murder, so it obviously couldn't have been him. Joseph Cappan, deceased at this point, was now their prime suspect because this Paul Cappan had like a 50% match to the DNA that was on the girls. So they knew it was a relation of this Paul Cappan, so Joseph Cappan was very much in the crosshairs at this point. While it looked as though Cappan was the killer, for the sake of confirmation for the families, the investigators wanted to get an actual DNA sample from Cappan to get that 100% certainty. So this led them to apply to the Home Secretary at the time, David Blunkett, for permission to exhume Cappan's body and take a DNA sample. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Cappan's surviving family consistently denied that he could be involved in the murders, but did agree to the exhumation, thinking that the DNA sample would prove his innocence. So while this was unlikely, there was actually a small chance that he wouldn't match the killer's DNA, which would have been a huge reputational blow to the police as well, not to mention like wasting time and money and whatnot. But the detectives got permission to dig up Cappan's body, and apparently on the night of the exhumation, there was a thunderstorm in Port Talbot, and thunder was said to have boomed when they first broke the burial ground. Locals suggested that they'd, quote, unearthed evil. Oh, yeah, exactly. That sounds
bollocks!
Like, yeah, what a load of shit. That is definitely some of the papers went, you got to write that, you got to put that in.
Lightning strikes, murder found.
And a ghost rose from the graves. Anyway, so it was no such luck for Cappan's family because they got his DNA and it was 100% match to the killer's DNA that was on the girls.
Bastard.
Proving beyond a doubt that he'd been the one that had raped and murdered those girls. And finally given the families of the victims some sort of closure. Sandra's mother was quoted as saying, "Now we can close the book on that hell forever." So even though that's not an ideal result, I imagine it was kind of this unfinished thing in the fact, you know, with the families of the victims, you just don't have that closure. So at least they had that, I guess.
Yeah.
It was later found out that police had stopped Cappan's car at a random stop and check not long after the murders, invalidating his claims that the car had been off the road on blocks since before the murders took place. This report never made it to the detectives in charge or of the investigation, or was overlooked or lost in the mountains of paperwork that was spread over several offices. So that piece of paper could have led to this whole thing being solved at the time.
It does sound, being a police officer, I'm not a huge advocate for or a big defender of the police, but imagine being fucking so difficult to do your job in the 70s when you've got just like paper,
just reams of paper everywhere, and you think, where was that? Oh, I'm sure I saw that report. Where was it? Oh, it's in a stack of like, I don't know, as high as your fucking desk. Go and have a look for one sheet in there that's the right thing you want.
Yeah. I mean, they should have overhauled it. Someone should have said, guys, this isn't working. Let's change it. But if
100%. there should have been somewhere there saying, how can we possibly run an operation like this?
Yeah.
But, a piece of paper falls off your desk and that's like essentially lost forever then. And
Yeah.
in this case, that's exactly what happened, is that piece of paper could have solved the whole thing and the guy could have come to justice and everything. But yeah, because of the way it was all done back then. Yeah, bit of a cock-up. So, after the findings were made public, Cappen's former wife, Christine Powell, who had previously insisted Cappen was innocent, came forward and admitted that she was forced to lie to the police, often for her husband, and was actually a victim of Cappen's abuse throughout their marriage as well.
Oh.
So he was like always on and off with the law, but she was forced to like lie for him constantly. Christine actually testified that Cappen was physically abusive towards her and would rape her every 2 weeks. And at one point, even strangled the family dog in front of their son because it was too old. So, a huge piece of shit, basically. Yeah, just like a massive, like a psychopath, I assume. Because how could you couldn't do that shit if you weren't sort of, I don't know, wired wrong in the head, I guess. But yeah, real big piece of shit. So the case, although as I mentioned, it was a bit of a botch job with like losing that bit of paper and whatever. It did have quite a bit of historical significance. So it was the world's first case to use DNA in that way to identify like the familial connections of a killer and kind of work backwards.
That's clever.
And also,
that's a clever way.
That is something that I just wouldn't. I mean, obviously, I'm not a fucking biologist or anything, or like a scientist in any respect. But I just never would have thought of that. And it was also the first UK case to exhume a body to prove a deceased suspect was guilty. And if you like or piqued your interest with this one, give Steeltown Murders on BBC a watch, because that's like a dramatised version of this, and that is pretty good. It's another one of those like what do we call it, Celtic noir type shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, give that a look. That's a bit more dramatised, and I think they take a few liberties with the details, but it covers all the main bits, and it's very well acted, and everyone in it is very competent. It's not like the typical, bumbling Welsh characters in it. It's pretty well done. But yeah, there we have it. That's the grim story of Joseph Cappen, the Saturday Night Strangler.
And I was going to trivialise it by saying, did he also come from a family who invented Knapan? But
yeah, I can't tell you how hard it was to not say Knapan every time I saw his stupid name.
Yeah, I just googled him and he looks like every 70s person as well. So like, I mean, my dad looked like that in the 70s. So if you're trying to find a man who looks like that.
In that Steeltown Murders where they're like, oh, we got an artist sketch, and they're like, fucking brilliant. It looks like everybody, like every single man at this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting. Give that, if you guys are interested in it, give that Steelhouse. There's two actually things you can watch. There's Steelhouse Murders, the dramatised thing on BBC, and there's also another thing on BBC that's like from a while back that's an actual documentary.
Oh yeah.
And that's got the actual detectives that were part of the investigation and everything, because it was the same lead detective. It wasn't lead detective at the time in the 70s. He was like up and coming, if you like, but he worked on the case in the 70s, and then he was the sort of lead detective when they reignited the investigation in the 2000s. So like he was, whether this is true or not, certainly in the dramatized version, they make it like a bone of contention that, it was like an unfinished business for him, and he couldn't, it was always bugged him that he didn't solve the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worth a watch. It's good.
Oh, I was going to say I enjoyed that, but I didn't enjoy that. It was sad, but it was a good episode. And yeah, like you said, it's a bit of a new angle for the pod. Because I think we're just going to do everything Welsh related, aren't we? That we're not going to be shackled to a certain era in history.
I think when we've come a long way in terms of what our brief is from the start of this, haven't we? Because when we first started, I remember we were just doing the idea anyway was to just do Welsh battles.
Yeah, and then
we moved on and just covering sort of historical topics and yeah, I think because I asked you before this, and I was like, do you think the 70s is a bit too recent? But it is history. It counts,
no, definitely. And I think we've had quite a few people suggest things to us on social media. So at Tales for Wales on Twitter, and I always feel it on Instagram.
It's Tales for Wales podcast, is it on?
Yeah, I think so. But we've had people message on there. Yeah, Tales for Wales podcast. We've had a bunch of people suggest things on there, which have been more recent times as well. So I think if there's anything, even if it happened yesterday and it's in Wales, it's history, baby.
Yeah, well, if we can stretch it to just do the knowing me, knowing you episodes where we just talk about ourselves, I mean, anything's on the table, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's really good. I like that, mate. Should we say our goodbyes?
We'll wrap it up. Yeah. Diolch am gwrando. Thanks for listening, everyone. And yeah, keep giving us the 5 stars and reviews and stuff. We'll read them out. Ta.
Ta-ra, ta-ra, ta-ra.
Ta-ra, ta-ra, ta-ra.